I just might have to cut this pole in half. And I feel like this is kind of a gate-kept secret a little bit for all these people with these, melanochrysum leaves that are 2 to 3 feet long. You have to keep... Hey everyone, today I'm going to teach you how to grow the biggest leaves on your aroids. If you've seen moss pole videos on Instagram or on TikTok over here on YouTube, you've seen a lot of really large leaf plants and you might not know how to do it. So that's what we're going to talk about today. The thing you might not know that the grower is doing behind the scenes is cutting the plant at the midsection and then removing the top part of that plant and repotting it lower, essentially the chop and drop system, so that then that plant will continue with that top cutting of growing larger and larger leaves. The key thing you have to do here is use either a prop ball or some saran wrap or a moss pole in some way to root out the middle cutting of your plant, your large leafed either philodendron, syngonium, monstera, and make sure some roots are in that moss pole or inside that rooting ball. This is the result on this melanochrysum I did with the propagation balls. I propped the middle section of this melanochrysum on the large mother plant, which is a few feet tall. And then I took off this top cutting by severing it off only once it was already propagated. And then I took that plastic rooting ball and I planted it in here. And now this whole pot is full of roots. Let's take a look. And there you go. This all started from those plastic propagation balls. And a lot of people said use saran wrap, which you definitely can. It's just that the propagation balls are reusable. Think about it as like a disposable plastic water bottle versus a canteen. I can always reuse those thicker plastic prop balls, but saran wrap makes for a great way to wrap your moss poles and create those roots at the midsection of your plant. But you need to create those roots before you chop it. But today I'm going to chop and drop this splendid down so I can show you guys that process of growing larger and larger leaves. Just a word of advice, I'm not supposed to cut this plant because this leaf is unfurling. A rule of thumb in propagating is to allow the leaf to fully unfurl and flatten out, and then we call harden off before you cut it. So this is not the best candidate for this, but for the sake of the video, I'm gonna do that. As my dad used to say, do as I say, not as I do, and that advice applies here. So it's definitely not going to make for a perfect leaf here. It might be a little deformed, but that's okay. You guys will get the process of what I'm trying to teach. So I'll start by unwrapping the saran wrap. If you didn't see before, we simply wrapped around the nodes of this plant. And at those nodes, we're able to add in some propagation mix, so essentially an aroid mix, and allow roots to come out on a few different nodes here. And then subsequently, we got larger and larger leaves. Look at how beautiful this leaf is at the top. So we're gonna keep this process going and kind of cheat the system, take off this top piece and drop it down lower. So I have a few tools here. I got a pair of scissors, of course, and then actually have like an X-Acto knife or a razor blade, potentially to cut this D-shaped plastic pole if I need to, but we'll see how this goes. Removing the next set of saran wrap here. I guess you could reuse this technically. So if you look at the back side of this moss pole, you can see all of the roots that have grown down the pole and inside of the aroid mix. I've actually considered swapping from just aroid mix in the pole to just coconut coir to save weight in the pole itself. But really you can see all those roots traveling down this pole, and that's what we're gonna take advantage of today. And at this next node I did, you can also see the roots that have tapped in there. So I'm looking at, I see roots kind of down into the lower region of this pole, and this is a great way to kind of eliminate the lower leaves that you don't really like or prefer. And if it starts getting leggy or the plant starts getting too leggy between the nodes, you can kind of chop at that level and then reset the plant down low, potting at that level. Granted, you have about 3 to 4 different roots, 3 to 4 in quantity with some branching, about 3 to 4 inches long. That's what I'm looking for in a cutting to establish. And I will typically give it a little humidity in that rooting process before I let it out here in the natural humidity of this grow room. So I'm gonna actually unpot the whole plant so I can see what's going on in the root zone. Pretty healthy, yeah, quite healthy roots, but it's pretty cool. This is the whole plant. It's kind of cool to see in totality. But the plant essentially thinks that this is a tree because it's an epiphyte and will grow up a tree. You can also use a plank of wood for this, but I guess that's harder to chop and drop. But I think my cutting point is going to be like around here. I have a zip tie on here. Let's just kind of see how this goes. Also, I'm using that as a cutting point too because with the bottom that's left over, I'll put this to the side. There's a little shoot right there. So there's a node with an axial bud and that will create a new leaf, but always from that new axial bud. When I cut this stem there, that new leaf that comes out will be really small. So since this is a splendid, I could see it being about this big and taking a lot of time to scale up in size as it reaches larger and larger and larger. So first thing I'm going to do is cut the plant at that mark that I said. So right about there, I'm going to cut, leaving on the roots in the pole. I just might have to cut this pole in half. And it looks like I left a zip tie down here at the bottom of this moss pole. There, that goes pretty easily. There's my base plant, and here's my top plant. This is a plant now in itself because of those roots that travel down the moss pole. Technically, I could like stand this up against a wall. Oh, and there's the Aroid mix coming out. But essentially, this is a plant on its own. It's pretty cool. You can almost like attach that up to a wall and just like, and let it grow up the wall, which would be pretty cool. But this is why I brought my razor blade, is I might just cut this moss pole kind of here in the middle, since it's just plastic, and then drop this amount down into the pot. So I'm gonna try with the razor blade to cut through this. It actually is working quite easily. And if I cut some roots, it's no worry. Root pruning is totally okay. It's a shame because there are some roots here I don't want to cut, but as I said, it's not a big deal. So we have this for a smaller plant we can reuse. So here is our new large-leafed philodendron, and it will be much shorter now. You see that? You see that hack that everyone's doing, and you're wondering how it's working and how they're doing it? This is exactly how it's done. And then here on our large top cutting, I'm going to kind of fill in the bottom of the moss pole so that those roots are happy. Being gentle with them, but don't be shy. Philodendrons are fine if you touch their roots. It's not like the Musa. Same with Monstera, very fine if you touch the roots or give them a rinse or give them a chop. And then down into this pot, I've got a little bit of Aroid mix. Fill in a little bit more. These are our 3D printed pots. They're made from bioplastic. They're pretty cool. I'm a big fan, honestly. We sell them on our website, prettyandgreen.com. But here it's already coming together, the really beautiful result of the chop and drop method. And I feel like this is kind of a gate-kept secret a little bit for all these people with these, melanochrysum leaves that are 2 to 3 feet long. You have to keep chopping the plant and dropping it lower over and over. And I could do this again to this plant. So in the original plant, we've got a big root mass here. Just going to fit that all into a 4-inch pot for now. But again, we come away with 2 plants because this is a style of propagation. And it's a really low-risk style because the roots have been attached kind of like an umbilical cord to the mother plant. I could even use the baby moss pole on the original plant if I wanted. But for the sake of the video, here's the bottom kind of uglier mother plant, but we got rid of these leaves that were kind of unsightly. So here's the result. It's a really beautiful large leaf philodendron with the moss pole still intact, or the Aroid Mix Pole. Thank you guys so much for watching this week's video. If you did enjoy the video or learn something new, click the like button down below and feel free to subscribe since we make 2 videos every week about houseplants. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.